From saying that Islam Makhachev didn't deserve his win to openly claiming that Alexander Volkanovski was robbed, Joe Rogan is one of the people that believe that Alexander should have been the winner. And here's what he had to say about it. The fight between Makhachev and Alexander is all the UFC world has been talking about recently. And now that it has come to pass, fans are not happy with the results. The community is divided, and a good number of people believe that Alexander should have been the winner. Among these people are professionals and commentators alike. Yep, you guessed it, Joe Rogan. The judges awarded Makhachev a unanimous decision victory, yet Joe firmly believes that Volkanovski was the rightful winner. Joe Rogan is known for his Fight Companion podcast, which he hosts alongside fellow enthusiasts Eddie Bravo, Brian Callen, and Brendan Shaw. The 55-year-old went live to share his reaction during the most intense moments of the match. During the fifth round, it was obvious who he was rooting for. He excitedly talked about how Alexander was going to be the double champion and how he had already 100% won. Joe's loud claims of he beat Makhachev.
He beat him. He beat him. He beat Islam in Australia
were further solidified by the latter's actions. As the commentator pointed out, the fighter seemed shocked, like he definitely didn't expect the outcome and also considered himself lost.
For the winner by unanimous decision, and still!
Islam had entered the fight extremely sure of himself, but by the end of the fight, he was on his back, and he seemed more shocked than the audience by that end result. So it's safe to say Joe and the fans weren't the only ones shocked when Islam was declared the winner. But unlike them, I bet Islam wasn't quite as dismayed at the decision. Not that it mattered, because Joe did that for both of them when he proclaimed that Alexander had been absolutely robbed. And many observing the fight thoroughly would agree with him. One could say the winner was decided from the start. Not that Islam is any less of a good fighter, but Alexander definitely had the advantage in that one fight, and he used it. Not to mention they were in Australia, and while that didn't really affect the fight too much, it definitely gave the Australian more of a reason to win. Rogan, even while acknowledging the potential bias due to their non-scoring roles, firmly believed that Volkanovski had secured a 3-2 victory. Frustrated by the outcome, he lamented about how it was so obvious in Islam's eyes. He pointed out that even the crowd clearly knew exactly who had won, though he did acknowledge also that they were in Australia and the audience was likely biased. Expressing his uncertainty, Rogan sought the opinions of his companions, acknowledging the difficulty in accurately scoring the fight while in their role as commentators. After all, while they were watching it live and were commentators, they weren't the ones scoring it legitimately. Rogan continued to debate the outcome, grappling with the possibility that his own biases influenced his perspective. He confessed that it was rather hard to confirm. Still, he did admit that he was a big Islam fan, and despite that, every instinct in his body claimed that he should have lost this one. Due to the rather unsure result and the continuous claims of a false victory, both Makhachev and Volkanovski have agreed to a rematch. This will not only give people a reason to hype these two once again, but also settle the dispute definitively. In fact, this upcoming fight is already getting more hype than the one that just happened, and that's probably because now the fans are fighting alongside the fighter. This will not only settle the dispute between the fighters, but also between the currently divided UFC community, and prove once and for all who's right. Now, whether Joe Rogan will be among these people is another question. After all, while he said that his opinion may be biased, it doesn't seem like he's willing to compromise. In fact, each day, he seems to be more and more adamant that Alexander should have won. So it's safe to say that we all know whose side he's on. Well, other than that, as it stands, Makhachev has claimed his first successful title defense, and this could potentially solidify his position atop the pound-for-pound rankings. I mean, according to Alexander, someone even told him that Islam admitted to his corner that he had lost. No wonder Joe is so confident in his opinion. He even said that he watched the match over and over again a number of times, and what conclusion did he reach after careful observation? that Islam had lost. As per him, it all comes down to what happened in the second round. That's when Alexander got the advantage, and he was on top at the end. It seems Joe isn't the only celebrity who thought it was Alexander's victory. Former UFC welterweight Jorge Masvidal has the same point of view. When he appeared as a guest on the Joe Rogan Experience, he supported Joe's claim. He asked the fans who they would rather be at the end of the fight. He insisted that his opinion remained unchanged even after watching the fight again. And to be fair, Islam certainly did look winded after the fight. But this isn't the first time Joe has leaned toward Alexander. In fact, he was sure of his victory in UFC 284. It's not that he hasn't got a point in his argument, but he said himself that he may be a little biased in his judgment. So how exactly did the fight go? Well, if we're going with the official UFC stats, then Alexander inflicted a lot more blows than Islam. Now, obviously, a fight can't be decided by just that alone, but it's definitely a huge deciding factor. I mean, he dealt 70 serious strikes, with his total coming up to 164. Compare that to Islam's 54 significant strikes and a total of 95. It becomes easy to understand why fans are so frustrated with the result. In the first round, Alex landed 11 significant strikes while Islam landed 10. In the second round, both landed 19. And in the third round, it was 14 and 16 respectively. But in both of the next rounds, Alex landed more. Not to mention in the fifth round, the margin was huge with 20 and 8 respectively. Nonetheless, Islam wasn't exactly getting pushed around by Alexander either. He pulled his own weight in the fight. Not only did he land 4 takedowns out of 9 attempts, he even controlled the ground for a stunning 7.5 minutes. Alexander, on the other hand, only controlled for around 3 minutes. In the end, the judges scored the contest 48-47, 48-47, and 49-46. And, well, Alexander is dissatisfied with the result. He made a point on Twitter saying that he definitely thinks he won and asked for a rematch. Well, it seems like the rematch will end up happening after all. I mean, with such a huge number of fans and even fighters like Nathan Diaz unhappy with the decision, the UFC really doesn't have much choice in the matter. In fact, many fans even insisted that Alexander should keep his number 1 pound-for-pound position after this match. One fan tweeted that this fight had proved that Alexander was an incredible grappler, while Islam was an incredible striker. Another fan pointed out that no one had ever pushed a fighter of Islam's caliber so far, which is why he shouldn't lose his number 1 spot. A fan agreed that no one should be given the number 1 spot with just one defense, and insisted that the only thing Islam proved was that there was a reason weight classes existed. Someone also said that the only argument he'd entertain for Islam taking the number 1 spot would be if he had finished Alexander. Well, despite all the people saying he lost, Islam also has his fair share of supporters who think that the result makes sense. Now, even though Joe Rogan isn't one of them, who knows? Perhaps Islam can change his mind if he has an overwhelming victory against Alexander in the rematch. Anyway, this is why Joe Rogan is convinced that Makhachev lost against Volkanovski in UFC 284.
Oh my God! What a fight! God. He beat him. He beat him. He beat Islam in Australia.